Hello and welcome to another video from me, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. And I'm continuing my attempt to learn Atlantic Chase, designed by Jeremy White and published by GMT Games, by just going through the tutorials. In the last video we looked at tutorial 1 and 2, so time to move on to tutorial 3. Before we move on though, just want to clear something up. In the last video, we looked at the pass action, and I think I incorrectly said that when you do a pass action, you can time-lapse all of your task forces. This isn't quite right. As it says here, when you do a pass action, you do a time-lapse on a designated task force. You have to do an all-pass action if you want to time-lapse all your task forces that you have. And that's only achievable when you have a leader. We haven't got to that yet, so sorry about that. Tutorial 3. Here we are, Tutorial 3, Neutrality. And here we've got to read some more rules. And this one on page 20 includes this thing called Intel limit. So it looks like Intel is going to be part of this tutorial. So we'll read those and we'll get right back. This tutorial introduces the Intel marker and another action called the signals action. We are now in September 1939. A week ago, Germany invaded Poland, and although the war on the ground in the West is quiet, on the water it is very much a live war. The Royal Navy is keen to disrupt German merchant ships shipping along the Norwegian coast, to interfere with or stop the importation of iron ore to its industrial system. It has effected a blockade of the North Sea, attempting to bottle up Germany's war vessels. Norway is neutral, however. Its coastal waters are now a road skirting the blockade. As far as Britain is concerned, however, Germany's merchant ships are enticing targets on that road. Okay, so weather is good to start with. And we also have this little tally marker here. Not sure if we're going to be using it, but we'll show you what that's about when that crops up. And here you can see two stations. We've got the German station in Narvik and a British station blockading there. The German station consists of a convoy, very slow, and the British station consists of two cruisers, and they say in the setup just pick two randomly. In this case we've got the Cumberland and the Berwick, and what we're trying to do with our task force, which consists of just 3 merchant ships, is to sort of slip down here. And we're going to try and get to either Wilhelmshaven or Kiel. And then from there, we're going to move across to the port boxes on this side of the map here. And once they're there, they're safe and can't be touched. So now we've seen the forces involved. I'll zoom in a bit so we can see what's going on. So just to recap, we win if we get our task force from here into either Wilhelmshaven or Kiel, and then from there transferred across to the port box on the left side of the map. And the British win if their station ends in the same hex as our station. And they're going to do that by using Intel markers and the signals action, because that signals action can only be done if the enemy trajectory has an Intel marker on it. So we could come down here, or we could take the long way round and come round here. Now the problem is you'll get an intel marker on your trajectory if a segment either goes through an enemy airfield or port or a station. So coming down here we're going to get an intel marker, but coming round here as well we're going to get intel markers when we go through the enemy ports and airfields in the channel. Now in the tutorial booklet it does show you this trajectory coming down here, and it might be worth going through that to show you how powerful the signals action is. Now we have initiative, so we're starting, the weather is good. So we'll start off by doing a trajectory action, and remember a trajectory action does not take initiative away from you. So, excuse me, we'll come along here. We'll go around here into this blockade hex, down past Bergen, which is neutral, into Wilhelmshaven there. But as I said earlier, because we've gone through an enemy station hex, that segment now gets an intel marker, and that intel could be we've been spotted by the station, or they've received some more intelligence from outside and the Naval War Room is relaying it to that station. Because remember, this trajectory says that that convoy could be anywhere along there, but intel has come in to strongly suggest it's around this area. That's all we can do. We can now pass, and when we pass, if you remember from the last video, we can do a time lapse which will allow us to remove segments from our trajectory. We can remove them from either end, but not in the middle. But obviously we want to remove them from this end. And our convoy, whoops, if you remember, is very slow. And from the time-lapse table, very slow, good weather, we can remove 2 segments. And there we go. As you'll see, if we want to remove segments that have an intel marker on them, we have to invoke an intel limit. And you'll see how that happens, hopefully, later on. But for now, that's our turn. The initiative goes over to the British, and they will roll to see if the weather changes. And to be honest, going down this route, the weather must change to bad to give us half a chance, but we'll see. So it will change on a 6. 5, nearly. Stays good. Now for this tutorial, the British use something called a British action table. And we're going to roll on that, and it will tell us what that task force is going to do. It's good weather, so we're going to roll on this row here. 3. Oh dear. On a 3, it's an S, and that is a signals action. Remember, they can only do that if we have an intel marker on our trajectory, which we do. So the British are going to perform a signals action. And what's going to happen here is that they're going to sort of steam towards this segment with the intel marker on it and convert it into a station. And all the other segments and the intel marker, incidentally, will disappear. So that's what they're going to do. So steaming towards that segment to see if the intel is as good as it says. And they're there. They found us. Now what normally happens after a signals action is that something called seize initiative occurs, where in this case the Germans will now try to seize the initiative from the British. But in this tutorial it says the episode ends the moment the British task force and the German task force are both stations and they occupy the same hex. Bang! Game over. And that is why in this tutorial it's not a good idea maybe to skirt this road, as it mentions in the story, unless they get bad weather, because the chance of a signals action is slightly lessened, not much. So what we'll do, we'll try the other way. We'll go round the long way. Unfortunately, we're going to be hit with many intel markers. We're going to get an intel marker when we go past Brest. Another one when we get into the channel with these airfields and ports. But I think you can only get one intel marker per segment. And another one here before we get into Wilhelmshaven there. Right, so we start again. The weather's good. We have the initiative and we're off. So we're going to do a trajectory action. And remember, that doesn't lose us the initiative. Excuse me. Come round the north of the Faroes. Come out one more. We'll come down here. Round past the west of Ireland. Missing all those airfields there. But now we're entering enemy territory. So we get an intel marker. We move into the channel. There's an airfield and a port. So we get another one. Moving up here. Another intel marker because of that airfield. And we know it's an enemy one in this case because it's got a B there for British. And the German ones have got a G. And then eventually into Wilhelmshaven. That's it. That's our trajectory action. There's nothing else we can do except pass. And if you remember, the convoy is very slow. So that means in good weather, just 2 segments coming off. Doesn't look good. Now, the British have the initiative and they're throwing for the weather. On a 6, it will change. Oh, look at that 6. It goes to bad. That's in our favour because they now throw for their action on that action table. If they get a signals action, they're going to turn this one into a station. It's going to be the one nearest their station. And then they're going to try and do a trajectory if they keep the initiative. Because at the end of a signals action, we have to do something called seize the initiative. And the non-initiative player, i.e. in this case us, will throw 2 dice. If we throw 9 or more, we snatch the initiative off the British and we can do stuff. But let's see what they get. We've got bad weather. Oh, I should turn that over actually so it says bad. Look at that. Ooh. Right, what do they get? They get a 6. Oh, what? It's a P for pass. The British perform a pass action, but they can't do a time lapse because they're already a station. They're getting the wobbles. They're not sure how to act on this intel that's coming in. They may think it might be a bit of a propaganda thing, I don't know. But they're passing. It's good news for us. It might not happen again. So it is over to us. We're throwing for the weather. We want it to stay bad. We don't want to throw a 5 or a 6. 3, no, stays bad, good. So I think what we'll do actually is do another trajectory action, and we're going to go into Kiel through the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal, which, I'm not sure if you can see it, it's for the Germans only, can move backwards and forwards through that double arrow space there. So I'm going to pop us into there. That keeps the initiative with us. And then we're going to do a time lapse. Now, because it's bad weather, we're going to throw a die, and that tells us how many segments to move. So we want a nice high number. Oh, 2. No point removing any of these. We need to get this short, so we'll remove those. That's our go over. The British have the initiative and they're throwing for the weather. 1 stays bad. What are they getting this time? Come on, another 6. Pass again. Get the wobbles. 2. No. Oh. 2. Oops, sorry. 2 is a signals. Oh dear. The British perform a signals action. Remember, you can only do them if the enemy task force has intel markers on it. We got 3. If more than one intel marker is attached to the task force, select the closest one to the British task force's segment or station. It'll be that one. So we do that. And looking on here, signals, convert enemy trajectory to task force station. Place station in intel markers hex. Remove all the other trajectory segments and intel markers. Nothing to do with contacts yet. We haven't reached that. And then the active task force, which is this one, it's the only one they've got, can time lapse. But they can't do that. They're a station. And then we've got this SI. So let's do the other bits first. So this all disappears. Along with all these intel markers. And this becomes a station. Now continuing on this here, next bit says if the British maintain initiative. Maintain initiative, yes. Because at the end of a signals action, we get this thing called seize initiative. And it's our chance to try and seize the initiative away from the Brits before they can do anything nasty. And to do that, we throw 2 dice. And if we throw a 9 or better, we have seized it. Now there are a couple of modifiers, one of which was that tally marker I told you about earlier. At the moment it's on 0, so it doesn't make any difference. But if we fail to seize initiative, that tally marker will move up 1. And the next time we have to roll for initiative, we add a +1 to it. And that will keep going up every time we fail. So eventually we will get the initiative if we have to roll for it. So let's get our dice. We need a 9 or more. Let's see if we can get the initiative. Oh, look at that. We've only gone and done it. This isn't how the tutorial's supposed to go. Remember, these tutorials are just to teach us these new actions and things. They're not really games in themselves, little scenarios in themselves, but this one is turning into one. It's great fun. Right, so we've seized the initiative. Brits do nothing else. But because we've seized the initiative, we have to roll for the weather. No, stays bad. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to do a trajectory. We're going to try and get into here, aren't we? So that turns into... Now there's a problem now. Stations can never have intel markers on them. But trajectory segments can. And now look what we've done because we're moving. We're going to move through here. This is an enemy airfield. So we get back an intel marker. Oh, which will affect what we can do when we do our time lapse. So, nothing else to do. We're going to pass and we're going to do a time lapse, but obviously we want to take them off this end, not this end. Because there's an intel marker on here, we can't do a normal time lapse. We have to do something called an intel limit. And that's on that little table as well. Here it is. We are very slow, so we're allowed to take one segment off, but that segment has to have an intel marker on it. So for instance, it wouldn't happen, but say the intel marker was there, we would use the normal, because we'd be taking them off this end, we could use the normal time lapse. But because it's here, we've got to use the intel limit. We can only take one. Every time you do the intel limit, at least one of the segments has to have an intel marker on it. We can only take one off, so it's got to be that one. That's our lot. It is now the Brits' turn, and they're throwing to see if the weather changes. No, it stays bad. What are they doing? 2, that's another signals. Action. Here we go again. But look, there are no intel markers. They can't do a signals action. And it says here, if a signals action cannot be performed because the German task force does not have an intel marker, treat as a T result instead. And that is a trajectory action they're going to do. And that says British task force performs a trajectory action. Roll a die. If even, extend the trajectory to the nearest German segment. Well, probably be the one in Kiel, or, well, that make any difference really, is it? 1, 2, 1, 2. Or odd, extend it to Wilhelmshaven. Then apply a pass result. So, let's see where they're going. It's even. They're coming down, I think, well, let's go into Kiel. Right, 1, get rid of that. 2, but boots on the other foot now. They've gone into Kiel. Not only is that an enemy port, but there's an enemy airfield there. They get an intel marker. And they pass. But normally they would remove 4 because they're fast, but they have an intel marker on them. So they've got to do an intel limit. They've got to remove 2. And one of them has to be the intel marker. So they're back there again. Oh, I feel quite good about this. It's our turn. Weather. No, stays bad. We're doing nothing except passing. We don't have any intel markers on us now. So we can remove 2, if you remember, for very slow. 1, 2, and that turns back into a station. Now all we've got to do now is get that over to the port box at the bottom left hand corner of the map. But we can't do that now because I think, if I remember right, you can't change from a trajectory to a station and then go to the port box. You've got to be a station and then you can go backwards and forwards. So that's our turnover. Fingers crossed. Brits are rolling for the weather. Oh, hold on. It's bad weather, isn't it? I just realised. Hold on. Getting excited. I should have rolled to see if we remove both of these because we've got to throw a die in bad weather. Sorry about that. I don't want to throw a 1. No, we're okay. So that's back as you were. But I still can't move across to the box. Okay, Brits. Weather check. No, stays bad. What they doing? 6. Oh, that don't look good for them, I don't think. Oh dear, oh law. It's another pass. The British perform a pass action. They don't know their what's named from their elbow. And then a weather check. So they're going to do a pass action. And that means a time lapse. And they're going to remove a die roll of segments. Of course, there's only one. So they remove that. They become another station again. Oh dear. Hope this is right. This is great fun. And a weather check. It's us. Stays bad. We're going to move to the old port box. Over here. There we are. We're safe at the port of Kiel. Crikey, if I've played that right, we've escaped the British task force and got the convoy home early. And we've got our little outcome here. The German task force is in Kiel or Wilhelmshaven. Yes! Despite British aircraft patrolling and more than one close call, yeah, where a ship was reported on the horizon, the merchant ships slip into port. Brilliant. There we go. I think we'll leave it there. That's another tutorial under our belt. But just a couple of things. When you have the opportunity to seize the initiative, you can actually refuse. And you get one of these, an evasive manoeuvres counter, which goes onto your task force and can be cashed in for a number of things. One of which is that the next time you have the opportunity to seize the initiative, you can cash that in and get a +1 to your die roll if it's good weather and a +2 if it's bad weather. They can be used for other things, but I dare say those will crop up as we continue on our journey through the tutorials. The other thing is about the intel limit. You may or may not invoke it. It's up to you. If you have both the options, in our situation where we only had the 3 segments and the end one had an intel marker on it, we could not do a normal time lapse because our normal time lapse would be to remove 4 segments. Not a problem if we didn't have an intel marker on it. But as we did, we had to invoke the old intel limit. So there we go. Right, I hope you enjoyed that and you found it interesting. If you did and you haven't done so already, it would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help. The other thing that really helps the channel is if you would push the old thumbs up underneath the video. And if you want to be informed of other content the channel uploads, then push the old bell. Leave a comment. You know me, I may have made some mistakes and missed them. If I have, I'll make a note of that in the description of the video. Thank you, as always, to my subscribers. Thank you very much. And one last thing, if you want to support the channel a little bit further, well, now you can buy the channel a coffee. And those coffees all go towards new content for the channel to upload. If you want to check that out, I shall leave a link in the description and thank you. So, until next time, when we continue with these tutorials, which I must say I'm thoroughly enjoying. As always, you take care and goodbye.